we're just going to kick this off now. I think most people are here. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you, dRofus, for setting this up, basically, and organizing and paying for the pizzas. Let's see. I guess I'd like to start off with acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. We honor the Architectus acknowledges Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as traditional custodians of the lands on which we live and work. We honor their unique cultural and spiritual relationships to the land, waters, sky, and communities, and their rich contribution to society. Just for people in house, the fire escapes are right there. Bathrooms are next to the lift. And yeah, help yourself to drinks. There's food up here. And yeah, that's basically it. Now, I'd like to welcome our speakers. We have Christian Dorst from HIQ, Health Infrastructure Queensland. We have dRofus's own Dipesh Thapa. We have Michael Klug from HKS, Angelo Pagano from Hutchinson Builders, and myself, Locke Tran, for anyone who doesn't know me from Architectus. So I thought we'd start this one off. This will be a little bit different from if you've been to other dRofus user group events. They usually just have a few presenters discuss their projects or the things they've used it on, but I thought we'd do something a little bit different this time around. So between me, Dipesh, Angelo, and Michael, we have worked a lot. We've had a lot of overlap in our careers. So yeah, actually, come on, why don't you guys come up? There's a second microphone here too. I'll let Ange and Dipesh, actually, do you want to?
So we all first started working together, I think 14 odd years ago at Hames Sharley.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Where I think all of us, including Graham as well from Woods Bagot, we fell onto the Sunshine Coast Uni Hospital bid. So for myself personally, that was the first job I ever worked on, working in a project office and falling straight into health and the gargantuan bid that was Sunshine Coast Uni Hospital. And what we're trying to kind of demonstrate here, and as Locke mentioned, just we've had throughout the time, our careers have kind of overlapped, crossed paths, and then we've kind of, at the moment, we've all gone separate ways. So throughout our time, so and I'll focus on myself, Hames Sharley, then met up with Michael, Locke and Graham at Woods Bagot. Then Michael, Locke and I were at Conrad Gargett, which has become Architectus, and now found myself at Hutchies. I don't know if everyone wants to do a similar round table, or we go to...
Yeah, I'll give it a sort of like a abridged version of myself, because I do have a slide afterwards just to talk about my experience with projects using dRofus on projects that I've used prior to actually working for the software development company itself. So just following through from what Angela just mentioned, I was part of the Hames Sharley consortium. So this was under Lang O'Rourke. We were bidding for the Sunshine Coast project. Yes, we lost, but then some of us joined the winning team. You can see the double logo there, what was formerly Rice Dobney. There's Michael and myself. We made our way to Sydney because the architects happened to be based there, even though it's for a Sunny Coast project. Then the acquisition happened. So technically, while I was there, it was Rice Dobney bar HDR. Following a pretty big project and also database managing a big team of users, dRofus, all for the first time, as the project started to slow down, I found my way working for Mode Design. And at the same time, because with Mode Design, I was actually working 3 days a week. So I delineated my time there. And I also contracted with a company, a small company called SCAR. In those times, I will talk about projects afterwards. After SCAR stroke Mode, I found myself at dRofus. So there's a bit jump over there, and I'll hand over the mic up to Mike.
Yeah, well, so similar as well. Started with those guys, Hames Sharley, even though I had previous jobs before that. But it's the one that we actually met up and started working together in a way. And I think what I want to say is that we sort of created like a mini team within the teams. And, you know, when one moved away, it's like, oh, what are you doing? Where are you going? And we sort of kept in contact, and always when there was a chance to move around, that we did, really. So that's what I think kept us together in a way. Interesting thing about, you know, moving to Sydney to work on a Queensland job, it was pretty cool. Obviously, I wasn't actually part of the bid at Hames Sharley, but then we realized that, you know, it wasn't going to last long. After the director at the time hired a lot of people to work on the bid, and the bid was lost. So we sort of like, so who won this bid? They probably need people. Let's ring them up. Central Coast Hospital, as you know, was the biggest hospital at the time, biggest project in Australia actually at the time, and we got lucky to be able to join HDR. So we, Rice Dobney, we moved to Sydney, worked for a couple of years then, and realized Sydney is not that great really. And then, sorry people, is there people online as well? Okay, sorry. Sorry, New South Wales people, but yeah. Then we decided to come back to Brisbane. And same thing happened, you know, where are you working? Let's go and meet those people and work together again. So I have a different ending in a way to that. I ended up going to the US, joined HKS. So I was there for 4 years, came back in January only. So I've been here with HKS now, which is a new thing.
And I guess, yeah, I've pretty much been through a lot of where you see my names. That's where I've been. Started with these guys at Hames Sharley, went to Bagot, and then Conrad Gargett. And then actually one thing that we learned earlier this week was I spent a few years after Conrad Gargett at BLP, which it turns out Depeche actually did a little stint at too, which we learned earlier this week. And then now I'm at Architectus. And yeah, it's just kind of like our paths seem to always be interwoven. Yeah. So we'll just go to the next one. That was this is just kind of all of us. I remember visiting these guys when they were at HDR.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was it's been a wild 14 years, I guess. And so these are some of the projects we've worked on together. So as we mentioned, Sunshine Coast Uni was the big one. A bunch of us did the bid, and then when Rice Dobney got it,
Good job, Chip.
Worked there. And that was done with, like, well, we should tie this back to the actual dRofus stuff. So that was, we did it with essentially Excel and a program that we no longer talk about anymore because it's kind of died out in Australia and most of the world.
People still use it.
Yeah, some places, not around us. And then Lismore Base Hospital was actually my first introduction to dRofus. I imagine, well, Michael and Depeche would have used it on the Sunshine Coast. But we started that, what, 2013, 2014-ish? Yeah.
So I think we have it as one of the projects we talk on in a couple of slides' time. But yeah, we moved into dRofus. So in a few slides' time, we pick out a few projects that we have on these slides and just talk through some of the interesting things and the interesting ways that we've used dRofus along the way, and just how that's kind of evolved as our knowledge of dRofus has kind of changed, and the needs based on where we are at that point in time of our careers has evolved as well. So I think Byron, we don't really talk about here, but that was again
Pre-dRofus, yeah.
So we won't dwell on that.
We did Knox together, yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, QE2. Michael and I worked on that. That was, I can't even remember that process.
Actually, we started with code book on that one as well.
Yeah.
Because it was so terrible. I think we actually implemented dRofus, but it wasn't a deliverable. So we used it internally only just to make sure everything was right. But the client didn't use it.
And then this Kingaroy Hospital is one of the more like all-enveloping projects we used it on. Me, Michael, I think Angelo, you worked on it a little bit. Yeah, that one we went through like, actually we'll talk, I think there's a slide coming up, but yeah, that one was fully integrated in it. Like I was basically sold by that point. And satellite, yeah.
Satellite hospitals, I think I added a slide in later. That one will be an interesting one to talk through. Same as, I can't remember if I have a slide in there on Mackay-based hospital, but with Locke's help on Mackay-based hospital, was able to probably for the first time push information from dRofus in terms of the standard information that you get from templates, so like ceilings and floor finishes directly into Revit. So quite quickly, you know, in concept and schematic design, with, you know, maneuvering of dRofus, was able to generate RCPs and floor finish plans which were linked with dRofus. It didn't populate you know, the ceiling, but it populated room data in that, so I could tag it and create those drawings quite quickly and efficiently, which again would be controlled by templates in dRofus. So as I mentioned before, you know, as we progressed and we needed things based on where we were in our careers, dRofus kind of had an answer for how it could be utilized and implemented, which I think if you go to the next.
Oh, I think these are Depeche's ones. Yeah, okay. Do you want?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I'll delve into Sunny Coast project a little bit more in detail afterwards when I've got a slide coming up lined up. But the my tail end of time at HDR, Rice Dobney HDR, was a small project, like a community double project, an area called Lachlan, out west from Sydney. So I was able to, you know, mobilize and get dRofus implemented with another team, none of who had worked on the Sunny Coast. So that was the end of my Sunny Rice Dobney days. Like I said earlier, I did move over to mode design briefly, and also did freelance work with SCAR. You'll find that, again, these are sort of like small community style hospitals. St. Vincent's at Griffith, and Northpark is at a place called Bundura, Victoria. I was just fortunate because after having had left Rice Dobney, my love for dRofus and the people that work for dRofus were already quite growing substantially. Therefore, I found myself, I guess, just one of those things, you know, when you work for a company, you also would love to get your hands on that tool. And so, yeah, I was able to use dRofus. St. Vincent's was a very small project. It was just a team of 2. And so I was kind of like, you know, coming from a very big project to Parks and Hospitals was Parks and Forbes was, I think there were about 3 or 4 of us. And then St. Vincent's was 2. And then the final end was Northpark, which is just me. It was a great little one-man sort of show, if you will. Design, you know, document, go through all the construction documentation, plus have dRofus there, getting all the room data sheets all nicely sort of tied up. And you know, it really was a scenario where I was able to, you know, utilize the time best of my ability, not just design and document, but also be able to get the data happening and show that, you know, room layout sheets and room data sheets can be totally 100% in parallel. Alrighty, that's from the architecture.
So recently, having moved from architecture to managing contractor side, again, so I'm Prince Charles, moving from controlling and being the kind of the main antagonist of the database to just being a user and seeing dRofus as opposed to controlling was a little bit of a shift for me. So Prince Charles probably didn't necessarily utilize it as much as I could. I used it to interrogate and look at data and convey that data to the rest of the Hutchies team who couldn't necessarily get in and use a database like I could. But PA, the support services, just how it's been utilized on that project. I think I've got a slide in here, so I'll talk about that in a couple slides' time. Oh, Lismore.
Oh, this was, I guess, yeah, no, do you want to jump in?
Talk about Lismore. So Lismore, the interesting thing about Lismore, I think, my opinion, and you probably remember this, is we've been given an ultimatum by the general contractor to come up with every single room layout sheet and every single room data sheet of the project within 2 weeks. we had only done standard rooms at the time. Do you remember this? Vaguely.
Maybe.
We only had done like one room of each, and because of columns being in the spot and slightly different. This is not a standard. This is a standard. The whole discussion about what is a standard and what's not a standard, and how do you document what's not a standard, right? Apparently, the contract said that we have to provide room data sheets for every room. So directors had the meeting with the other directors, and they went back to us and says, how long do you guys need to produce every room data sheet and every single room layout sheet? So we went back and did like a calculation of how long it would take average each sheet, and we gave them back. It's going to take you 3 weeks if we work to 10 o'clock at night, 5 of us, something like this. It was a bit crazy. And they said, okay, go for it. Make it happen. If we didn't have dRofus, I don't think we would never complete that, to be honest.
And then I remember being, what was it? We were in the John Holland office going through and trying to find all the variations to the AusHFG, every single item, basically. And so having that log was such a lifesaver.
And I think the contractors at the end, all they wanted to do is go back to the schedule of equipment and make sure it was correct in terms of every single room. It was they had to close the contract with HI, and without that they weren't able to produce the documentation that they had to, the price.
Probably one of the other interesting things with Lismore is it went between companies as well. So when we started, it started at Woods Bagot, and then the managing contractor took it to Conrad Gargett, which for one reason or another, we ended up at Conrad Gargett as well. So that the database, we followed the database, or the database followed us, or whichever you want to look at it. But it kind of moved between companies. And again, it's interesting. Have another example of that later on, but the flexibility of the program being able to do that to make a seamless transition made it, very easy as that process.
I actually have something. There was a fun thing that I noticed when we swapped over companies. I actually ended up doing a big validation of the design model, and man, was there a lot of stuff missing. And that's where it kind of saved us a bit.
Interesting to say that it was prior to being mandatory for HI. So we use it on our own.
Yeah.
Put it that way. It wasn't mandatory, so it was a contractual nightmare to transfer the data from one company to another, even though it was the same project. It was a lot of contractual complications, and as you can imagine. And I think it's a good thing now that the state is actually owning the database, so whoever works on it will have the access to the database. I think it's like that. Maybe correct me later. But I think that's actually a good thing that's happening.
So Kingaroy was we went through like 8 different planning schemes, and then each one was essentially costed, and we just linked it straight to the database, and it was really amazing for just iteration and doing a lot of those tracking cost plans.
Master Plan 13B.
Yeah. Oh, I thought there was. Okay, yeah, that's.
No, I'm joking.
That's fun. But yeah, it was really comprehensive in the way that it was like starting from concept all the way to construction. It was it made things a lot easier. And it also helped that the client at Queensland Health, they were very much involved in all the FF&E and all the planning and all that. Yeah. So it was pretty seamless. Ange?
Satellite hospitals. So I wrote there the original standard project. So when we started satellite hospitals, it started similar way as a capacity expansion project where everything was intended to be standard. So as a result, we set up the dRofus database so that when you logged in, that you could get into any of the 7 sites from one, but they were controlled centrally by a list of templates. So little did we know at the time, but if you impacted one template, that applied to all 7. So unfortunately, longer than I cared to admit, we would notice these little anomalies and bugs in the system, but it was actually people from Redlands or Tugun that were implementing changes on their facilities, which were impacting other facilities. So what started off as a really good idea ended up being our shortfall, and we ended up having to create completely bespoke templates across every single site for the entire satellite program. The originals weren't used anymore. So with that as well, again, talking about the flexibility, so that was with Conrad Gargett and Fulton Trotter. That, again, 2 companies, but also against 2 different platforms. So we had Conrad Gargett utilised Revit and Fulton Trotter utilised ArchiCAD. And again, the integration with all of them was seamless. So it made it fantastic that we were able to work within the teams and the information exchange was, like I said, flawless. PAH support services. So this is the job that I'm currently working on with, we've got dRofus as well and Woods Bagot. I've been fortunate that they've allowed me a little bit more flexibility in the database. So what we are utilising here and what I have on there is an Excel export, but it's based on obviously dRofus information. So what we're utilising it for at the moment is tracking against the FF&E list that we tendered. So based on live exports that I can get from dRofus, and I'll admit I'm not the most Excel savvy. I know you can do power queries and all that kind of stuff, which live integrates. So I'm not at that level yet. I'm just kind of fake it till I make it level. But what we've been able to do is essentially whenever I take a fresh export, which takes all of a few seconds, I'm able to plug it into an Excel spreadsheet that I've set up, and it tracks the deviation from the tender set that we had. So quite quickly and easily we can see that we've added 3 or 4 dispensers, or we've lost a few. And again, we're also tracking costing through there as well. So we can quite quickly and easily see all of the FF&E costs associated with the supply and install of those items, which we've incorporated into the database. So again, as I said at the start, as our needs evolve, so too does how we utilise dRofus. And at the moment, it's working quite well from an FF&E perspective.
So from that, you came from the architectural side and now on the contractor side. How do you see the difference? How you use dRofus in terms of the output that you get? Obviously, you get the Excels to track cost more than to track changes and things like this. So how do you see your interaction with dRofus instead of on the difference between both sides in a way?
As an architect, I mainly used dRofus for a QA mechanism. So my workflow would essentially have been, go to user group, take comments. I'd always implement it in dRofus first and then push that change through to Revit. So I knew that everything would be seamless in the end. Would always do a comparison by room and ultimately by level to make sure that everything was fine. Here, obviously, I don't have that integration and the ability to do that QA. So rely on the architectural team for that. But what I mainly use it for is costing purposes. So again, we need to track and demonstrate to the client how our costs are being impacted. So this provides a really easy and clear way to show, again, we're up 3 soap dispensers, we're down 12. And again, we can also track through their supply install prices as well. So when we plug that figure into our cost plan, we've got all that information.
And do you do cost plan in dRofus or in your Excel, your own Excel?
We do it. So I have, maybe I shouldn't have, but I have plugged information into there. But because no one else in the company can use dRofus, right? So I need to export everything into Excel and then provide that to our cost planners, which then plug that into their cost X files.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're just keeping an eye on the chat as well. Conrad's from Melbourne has put a comment here, and I think that's a takeaway, Angelo. There's a chance to have a customized property and perhaps like have what is expected versus what is actual, and have stuff inherent within dRofus. Anyhow, I just put together this slide because it's been donkey years, many millions of moons since I've been on your side of the table fence. So I'm just trying to, obviously, it's a long time ago since I have been an end user working on projects, but I've done my best to just put it together. So that kind of is the version, the user interface, which is a 1 point. For the life of me, I can't quite remember what version, but it was 1 point, like single digit, 1.2 or 1.3 maybe. So yeah, quite an old school interface. At that time, moving over to Sydney, joining Rice Dobney in 2012. One of the things that was quite striking was that I personally came from a Revit background. I used a lot of Revit prior to moving down to Sydney. And however, Rice Dobney was using ArchiCAD, which is in itself a great thing to look forward to, right? You know, to learn a new tool. So yes, did learn ArchiCAD, but my role there was predominantly to do with database because part of the bid was getting involved in the data side of things. And so at the same time, also you can see here that it was a joint venture. So we had Architectus actually working on the skin, whereas Rice Dobney, the planning and what have you. So already you can see there's two tools in action, there's ArchiCAD and there's Revit. Fortunately, dRofus had the ability to connect and integrate with both these tools. And also knowing that we've got the IFC, the universal and neutral format that represents the geometry, to also translate and, you know, overlap and things from a geometry standpoint. And the amazing thing is that dRofus just connects with all three of them. So it was great. One plus point about ArchiCAD, I can dare say, is that it was a one model solution. The $1.9 billion project, Sunny Coast, was all within one model, at least on the Rice Dobney side. I know in Revit, we have to obviously, you know, break the model into parts and deal with file sizes and stuff like that. Oh, there's a love heart, good on that. But one model, that is so complementary of the concept of a single database. So that blew my mind already. Yes, I was in charge of doing internal training and what have you within Sunny Coast, but also carry out various activities. You can see them there. And also, you know, we had like 100+ users, the greater team, the landscape architects, even the builders, the various services consultants, what have you, all using the software, all for the first time. And it wasn't too bad, you know, like it was getting people on the same page as best as possible. So some of my sort of tasks while I was at Rice Dobney was, discrepancy reports, you know, to see where are we at, model versus the data.
The discrepancy report was, I think we had to do it once a month.
Something like that, yeah.
And the head contractor would come to the office to check the discrepancy report, and there was a percentage attached to it, and he would go, okay, this week we are at 80%, we are 20% short, and we are 3 months away from delivering this. Next month, you got to be at 95%, zero discrepancies. 0, 95, what do you want? No, 95% should be enough for us to cost this and go ahead for the next stage. It was guaranteed price. It was a consortium guaranteed price, a mix of a contract, PPP. And it was a nightmare. The week before, discrepancy reports coming, everyone fix their models.
So that enabled us to just, you know, it enabled us to, you know, keep up and things like that. Also, while at Rice Dobney, I had a different hat on, which is basically because the software was sort of its infancy stage, at least here in Australia, the way we use the software. So I was part of this team as well to, you know, submit improvement requests, new feature requests. And of course, dRofus being a software development company, bugs can happen. So what we did was me and a couple of my colleagues at Rice Dobney, we collected all the issues that, you know, we had internally as an architect and prioritized prior to actually submitting or what have you, like talking to our support, dRofus support, who was not also in the continent at that time, on the other side of the planet. So we worked with, you know, time zones and what have you. So it was a great experience. All I can say is we had great support given the distance and the time difference. So yeah, just going back to what I was mentioning. So my tail end of Rice Dobney, it is time to transition to the other side. So since 2015, I've been working for dRofus. I often get asked by a lot of my industry mates, oh, don't you miss architecture? Don't you miss all the creativity security that you got and what have you. I'm like, well, actually, you know what? Software development company. We're not software company. We're a software development company. So onwards and upwards. We're always like improving. We're creating new features. We're also defining workflow. What we already have existing stuff from, like, I don't know, a decade ago. There are these tools that, you know, if we work it out, create your own workflows that might be suiting to your culture as a work team or the industry or the sector, etc. So yeah, I'm forever enjoying activity within the software company, let alone the person as a office had domain names like at the rate XYZ architect and come there and work in the office as part of you guys. So that's also an offering. And some of the personal benefits, you know, working as an architect. That was in a center once upon a time. All I did for 4.5 years was that. And all right, it's fine, you can get into it, but sometimes it's nice to be across multiple projects. So I'm getting that, and I'm really enjoying that. Likewise with multi-stakeholders and, you know, just the whole industry exposure. We get to understand how a fire service is. I think I just want to say that, yeah, we're here to help. So please help us help you as well, because we love taking your notes from you and how you'd like the software to be improved, that sort of thing. Basically it. I think maybe to question next.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for the invite to talk about the dRofus implementation at HIQ today. My name is Christian Dorst. I'm the BIM Digital Asset Lead in HIQ and Health Infrastructure Queensland. I think I know a lot of you have worked on some of our projects in one way or the other, or currently working on some of our projects. Yeah, so we have to sign an agreement with dRofus. We'll host the dRofus database for our project ourselves. So we did that question I want to talk about. So dRofus is not something that happened in the last 4 weeks or something, or overnight. So this was always a hot topic in HIQ. So it would be beneficial to have dRofus. We always wanted to have consistent, high-quality data, wanted to be able to report and optimize our processes and understand our designs. As dRofus was managed by different lead architects, by different managing contractors, of course, that means that the data consistency is not great, which is not the fault of but it was for us very hard to get the data back together. So then the other thing what came along was that the database should be owned by the state. By the time that report was published, it was I think in May this year. We were pretty much at the end of the procurement process already, so it was just and I think we signed a contract at the end of May or early June with dRofus. Yeah, so after we signed the contract, the next question was how do we implement this platform in HIQ? And we started to pull together a working group. So we reached out to the different teams that should work on dRofus or should have some requirements for dRofus. So the FF&E team, obviously, ICT teams, project delivery, and we asked them to nominate a dRofus champion. so 1 or 2 people per team. We have now a working group, the HIQ dRofus working group, consisting of 17 champions. I'm somewhere here in the middle as the implementation lead, the working group chair, and I'm the contact for the external team. So which is of course dRofus, Dipesh and Mike. We spent a lot of time with each other the last couple of months, as you can imagine. But we also had, luckily, we had a BIM consultant, IMBI, on board. So we have signed, or we have engaged IMBI, even signed contract. So again, that was very good timing. So we had these guys on board. As you can imagine, implementing a platform like dRofus has a big impact on your BIM framework. So I highly recommend to do that in parallel. So some decisions that we made very early in the process was contact for the dRofus team and for the internal teams, which was myself. You don't really want to have, I don't know, 100 people sending emails to Mike and Dipesh. The other way around for dRofus or for IMBI, it's just difficult to understand who should be involved. So I think it was a good decision. We set up a Microsoft Teams channel where we shared data exclusively on that channel and not via emails or anything else. I think that was another good decision that we made. We have a controlled environment where we share data. So, and then once we had the team in place, then we started the implementation, or to put together an implementation plan. Stage 1 was what I call the definition phase, where we just had a look. Okay, what do we have at the moment? That was, of course, in our asset information requirement. Framework schedule what I can also standard components, which ones do we want to include in the database or not, and then any other requirements that we had here from procurement, asset management, commissioning, HHS teams. So in that stage, we had 10 workshops with the different teams to define what we want. We can start at stage 2, preparation. Update the framework, which was mostly done by Mark and his team. Creating a management plan, also something that IMBI did, and Dipesh and Mike started setting up the first version of the dRofus template database. So that goes all again in parallel. And of course, if you update the framework, if you add a new parameter, that has an impact on the management plan, has an impact on the dRofus. We had like in my Outlook inbox, just between dRofus, IMBI, HIQ, and myself. And this is really only the ones that I still have in Outlook. That is not any meeting invites and things like that. And then stage 3, this is where we are at. So I want to be confident. What you need. We start user testing again with the dRofus champions, our ICT team is involved. Started to set up Power BI dashboards, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Setting up the standard. We are in the phase of user training, so we had sessions already this week, another one tomorrow. I think we have like 75 people from HIQ across those 3 training sessions. So I think very good outcome. In total, since June 2025, I had 128 dRofus related meetings, again with Dipesh, Mike, Mark from IMBI, internal teams. Very intense time. Okay, so a couple words around the dRofus database. So I can't talk about every single setting, what we did in the dRofus template database, but some high-level things that we did. So we have decided to only include all HFG standard components, the Queensland Health standard rooms that you probably came across in other projects where we drawn 2 or 3 months ago. So that made so that made our implementation, of course, a little bit easier. Something that is very important for us. We wanna. This is pretty similar to what the guys in New South Wales do. That's not rocket science. Want to track the HFG deviations in the dRofus, so we have fields for that in on room template level and on the room level, and we will also track the square meterage, or the areas of a room and of templates across the project life cycle. So control schedules, same thing, also HFG only at the moment. ICS 1.11. Of course, we hope can move to also HFG 2.3, I think it is at the moment, as soon as possible. So I know that Charlize and her team from also HFG working very hard in the background to update the standard components, and as soon as that is finished, then I reckon we will update to also HFG 2.3 or 4, whatever it is then. So however, there will be still maybe Vincent Health specific codes required on the project. Our FF&E team have established a HIQ data categorization committee. So I'm part of that committee, so we meet really every Friday and review all the code requests and approve or reject those codes. So hopefully in the future that will be much more streamlined than it was in the past. For the Vincent Health framework updated at the same time. So that was a great opportunity to review our asset list, equipment list, where we define what is an asset and what not. And we implement those asset information requirements in the dRofus. So when you go into dRofus and you use an also HFG code, some of the data will now be pre-populated. Things like asset name, asset class, S4 object type, which is information that is coming from our asset management platform, SAP S4HANA. And I think this is information that is just really, really hard to get for a delivery team. So this was mapped to the also HFG item control schedule, and that means asset core data is in many cases already predefined. Yeah, but everything that is in the asset information requirements is in on type or occurrence level somewhere in the dRofus. Another here, I think it was or Chris in Sydney is have a checklist section in our properties. So for the BIM managers, they can go and select an occurrence and then see what BIM parameters have been populated and where we have gaps. So hopefully that helps as well to review the data. All right. Here also procurement operations. So we have also spoken to our HHSs, to the procurement teams. They are very keen to have their information in the dRofus as well. So we have added a procurement section and delivery commissioning section in here as well, where we can then track purchase orders or delivery of an item. So this is mostly relevant for Group 3, Group 4 items we procure ourselves. Yeah, so dashboards, this is something that is currently in development. So this is the first version. We have developed 7 dashboards so far, with a focus on FF&E, room data, and BIM data. So we will use those dashboards also for BIM audits. So as I mentioned before, what we want to do is track also deviation, how the design developed over time. So you see that up here, we have that blue bar, that is the briefed area, and now we track that briefed area, or the designed area against that briefed area. So this is something where we want to keep an eye on in the future. And the same for FF&E items. So our FF&E team, they wanted to be able to filter per item group, per budget group, and just want to understand across the program how many tables do I have across the program or across the project. So this is hopefully then also something that is a bit easier in the dashboard. Then we also developed that dRofus management plan. Yeah, pretty much what I just spoke about. This is all in the dRofus management plan. Some rules that we have defined. This is pretty similar, like a BIM execution plan. It's a template that we share with delivery teams. And I know some of you have seen it already for some upcoming projects and have reviewed it or worked on it. From the indie guys to split it into sections. Section A, HIQ requirements, basically non-negotiable, set in stone. And then section B, where the delivery team can respond to those requirements. I think that that's a good idea to combine those two. Yeah, this management plan is aligned to the HIQ FF&E coding principles and the HIQ FF&E management plan, relatively new documents that our FF&E team has just developed. That is all aligned. Yeah, lessons learned. What worked well was the clear rules of communication, how we exchange data, that we really very clearly specify that straight from the beginning. I think that helped a lot with the implementation process, especially as we had, I don't know, teams with hundreds of people involved. They all wanted to have their say in one way or the other. And that we had that BIM framework done in, or the update of the BIM framework done in parallel. I think at the end it was critical to do that at the same time. I can't imagine that you implement dRofus without really do a proper review of your BIM framework. Something that I would do different next time is to provide training for the dRofus champions up front before we start pulling them into workshops. We had some people in HIQ who had a good understanding of dRofus, but not everyone. Yeah, for some people, they came into the workshops and seen dRofus for the first time. It's very hard to then discuss, I don't know, packages, sub items, parent and child codes, and all those things. So I think it would be beneficial to at least have maybe a half-day training to provide a high-level intro into dRofus. So the last one. If you have meetings with Depeche, sometimes takes a bit longer. So I think our record is a 30-minute meeting that we turned into a 3-hour meeting. But it's always great to have those meetings. And I mean, there was just a lot to discuss, to be fair. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Yeah, thanks everybody who was involved. Yeah, Mike, Depeche, Mark and the IMBI team, so the whole dRofus team, also Jasper in Sydney or Melbourne. I think, yeah, very, very good work. I think we are all very happy with the outcome and can't wait to implement it on the first project. Thank you.
I think we might questions. Does anyone have in the room have questions? Then we'll go to questions online. Just
what first project will be implemented on? What first project will this be implemented on?
Cooktown. The first one.
Thanks. What's your approach for all the ongoing projects and bringing consistency to them?
What? Sorry.
What's your approach to the ongoing projects, and how do you plan to bring consistency across those?
Yeah. So we offer HIQ specific training for our projects. I think this is definitely something that we do for the first couple of projects, whenever that is required. Yeah. So for our first project, this is what we offer the project team. Yeah.
Curious, like obviously all projects have a set of like contractual requirements that were at the start of the procurement of the supply chain for the project. You had something that is set in stone for the contract. Like, is there a way to bring in the new framework, new standards, new parameters, new database?
Yeah, I mean, the BIM framework is always part of any contract, and same with the dRofus management plan. So I think for us the threshold at the moment is maybe 20 million, where we want to implement the dRofus, but it depends on the project type. I mean, we have a lot of car park projects where we way more than $100 million, but we don't really see a lot of value in using the dRofus on those ones. But yeah, it will be the BIM framework and the dRofus management plan. So this is what we have embedded in the contract, or what the contract refers to, where we then have all of the requirements then specified.
Else have any questions in the room before we throw it to the Nathan?
Hi, Christian. So just with dRofus and the lifespan of it, is it HIQ's intent to continue with dRofus post as built, or is S/4HANA still going to be?
So this is really hopefully our single source of truth until we get to the handover stage, and from there we have then also already predefined reports. The BIM data uploader that you know, so that is something that you can now export from dRofus and then import into SAP S/4HANA, yeah, and then we archive the project. Yeah, now S/4HANA is set.
Marnie is asking, are these available yet? What is they? These.
So,
Marnie, if you can be more specific.
But the dRofus management plan is not finalized, so we have shared it with with a few project teams, but it's not officially finalized. And the BIM framework is also just being reviewed internally. Yeah, so not released yet. It's with our internal comms team and engagement team for the final review. Would say maybe early next year until we really can finalize or can publish those.
Great, thanks. We're just going to take a little break, grab some drinks, maybe use the facilities, and we'll reconvene in 5.
Okay, guys, just about to get on to the last prezzo for the evening. Alrighty. So here I am again, only this time with the dRofus software guys hat on. First things first, thanks to all those who had dialed in, especially those from locations that are ahead on the clock. A fair few of you would be on the daylight savings, of course, so really appreciate it. Also, not particularly intending on making you guys too envious, but I know you guys missed out on some yummy bites and beverages that have been dished out here in Brizzy, but hopefully some of you local dRofus users will organize a dRofus user group event at your very own respective cities, and hopefully in the not too distant future. As always, dRofus would be more than happy to organize the food and bevs for such events. And so I'm here to present you our new ACC integration. This prezzo has been put together to mainly showcase why we built this integration and really to bring to your attention the very potentials of effectively eliminating some of the pain points that you may be currently experiencing. I'll also be walking you through some of the features. Firstly, for those of you who didn't know this already, back in 2024, there was this really cool thing that Autodesk released. It's called the Autodesk AEC Data Model API. And in a nutshell, what this means is that when you publish your Revit design files within your ACC space, all the information there will not only be arranged in a manner that is super logical and structured, but also the access of all that very information, while they are setting up in the cloud, can also be easily achieved. This has therefore, and in turn, enabled a software solution like dRofus to be able to leverage this technology and develop the new AAC sync and correspondingly the new ACC integration, a feature that can be utilized using solely your web browser. That's right, no desktop app necessary here, which also means no Revit add-on is required at all. So just showing the top 3 key features. Fundamentally, the aim here is to make it super duper easy to pull data from your Revit design files into dRofus without actually opening Revit, yeah? As you know, within the manual process that we use today, you have to have the desktop app downloaded, installed on your machines, and actually have to run Revit, load your very Revit file or Revit files, and also manually run the synchronization. What we're trying to do here with the ACC integration is providing the option to automate the sync as well as simplify the process. And above all, pretty much browser-based the whole lot. The model options functionality, which is essentially, your package of various configs, your settings of all sorts within Revit, can be utilized within your browser at the very time of syncing your data. While rooms has been the very first cab off the rank, items, occurrences, etc. will soon, very, very soon follow. So yeah, just casting your eyes on this screenshot may ring a bell of what the model options functionality is all about. As part of being a secure solution that is Autodesk, authorization will be very much so required. So I'm just going through the very sort of step-by-step rundown on how you can be granted this authorization. Pretty obvious, familiar stuff. And as you can see here, they're all pretty straightforward. And finally, the completion of that last step pretty much signifies the shaking of hands between Autodesk and dRofus, meaning the model settings interface within dRofus Web will look something like this. This is when you'll be able to select the hub and then the project within your ACC space, as well as the model option within your dRofus space, to then be able to carry out a sync of your rooms. Once this sync has been activated, you will get this message at the top. And once the sync has been completed, you will get yet another message, essentially reporting the count of created, synced, and removed rooms. Here is an example of that email containing a sync log attachment, which is essentially in the form of a text file. You will note that this sync log is a pretty comprehensive report that not only lets you know the various counts and the whodunits, how long it took to do them, and when exactly they were done, but also other things like the hub name, the project name, the model or models considered, and even the version of the Revit design file or files. Currently, we have 4 options as far as processes go. You will note here that, much like in the case of the Revit or ArchiCAD add-ons, the creation of new rooms and or the deletion of existing rooms in dRofus can also involve that classic synchronizing of data at all times, if you so wish. We're now going to have a closer look at each option. So with option 1, the focus is on syncing of data only. Here, it actually takes into consideration only the dRofus rooms and their linked Revit counterparts. Some good examples of this options use case is updating dRofus rooms with the latest drawn or designed information, such as the designed area and the architect's room number. This slide here is just outlining the key assumptions in order to make option 1 happen. So as far as the steps go, you pretty much start by making a selection at the very highest level, that is the hub, yeah? And then you work your way down these numbered bullet points. You'll also note here that if there are multiple design files within the single ACC project, all of them will be considered when you carry out the sync. Also, there's the option to automate the sync. If that box next to automatically sync is checked, the syncs will, as it states there, happen automatically every time a new version of the design files are published. Also, and at the same time, the sync rooms button there enables you to carry out your syncs on an on-demand basis. That is, really whenever you want it. I'm going to walk you through a pre-recorded video to really show you this magic happen. So as you can see there, that's the key attribute that's being used, additional number, the IFC GUID. Also noting that we don't need to have any add new or delete selected. We're using a specific configuration, no room number, no room name, and no note value against the note field. So we're just going to go ahead and while you've got the auto sync checked, you can, like I said, anytime sync on demand. Having had done that, if we're to then go back to the dRofus interface and refresh, you can see that the room number, the room name, and if there's any value against the note field in this case, will get injected. Okay, so now let's have a look at option 2, where the focus here is on the creation of new rooms in dRofus based on new rooms in Revit. This is a great option to use if Revit was already happening and dRofus got onboarded later on. In other words, this would be a model-driven approach. Within the option 2 assumptions, the only difference here, as you can see, compared to option 1, is of course the Revit rooms are not already linked to dRofus rooms. That is, the corresponding rooms in dRofus don't even exist yet, yeah? Here's a quick rundown on the option 2 steps. And of course, here the box against add new will need to be checked. And oh, by the way, when new dRofus rooms do get created based on new Revit rooms, these new dRofus rooms will actually be functionless. That is, they will not have a room function number. I personally like to call them homeless for now. And then the idea is that following the creation of these tentative functionless rooms, one could then drag them to the desired functions and literally provide them with shelter, if you will. In the next slide, I'm going to play another video that will demonstrate option 2. So as you can see here, clearly the add new checkbox has been checked. And the column against room function number, I've used a filter to only include rooms that have no room function number value, so blank. We're just going to go ahead and sync rooms. And the results will soon show up. And as you can see here, 54 rooms have just been created. Of course, we need to get back to the interface and give it that list of rooms a refresh. And here you are, you've got your 52 rooms imported, which are indeed functionless. Also noting that we've used the parameter called additional number as the key, which is in fact the Revit's very own IFC GUID. In the same breath, we also got the room name and room number. If there was any note value, that would have come through as well. With option 3, the focus is on the removal of existing dRofus functionless rooms based on non-existing or non-linked rooms within Revit. Again, and similar to option 2, this is a great option to use if Revit was to be considered as the source of truth. So far, with this particular option, as part of the typical set of steps, we're actually showcasing a scenario here where new dRofus rooms were already previously created using option 2, okay? It is therefore important to note here that when using option 3, the deletion of existing dRofus rooms will occur only if A, their room counterparts no longer exist in the Revit model, and B, these existing dRofus rooms are still functionless. In other words, if you'd like to protect or shelter these dRofus rooms and avoid their very extinction, all that you'll have to do is to chuck them inside some function or the other, yeah? It's also worth mentioning here that options 2 and 3, that is when rooms are getting either created or deleted, the processes would be most applicable at the end of a project milestone. As you can appreciate, this sort of purging process, if you will, is perfectly applicable for a perfectly aligned database and model as a snapshot, if you like. The video in this slide will now demonstrate this option 3 process. So you can see here, you could have, in this case, we're obviously focusing on the deleting. You can also see that there are 3 rooms. There are stairs that don't have any room function number. So they are remaining as functionless. And then we're just gonna go over to the model and show you the 3 corresponding rooms that, based on which we had created those rooms in option 2, the prior option, yeah? And, as one would typically do, you could easily select your rooms in the schedule and hit delete. But just want to quickly give you a visual look at those 3 stairs in question. And let's say you've decided they need to go, and for good, so this is clear, well and truly also removed from your Revit schedule. And yeah, obviously you don't see those rooms anymore. Having had done that, you would want to save to central for the purposes of your work sharing. And furthermore, what you might want to do then is go to your interface for publishing, and you will note that there is a blue marking, meaning it is not yet latest and greatest, so you would then want to publish. Having had done that, you would then jump back onto your dRofus web interface and run your sync. And having had done that, you can see that 3 rooms have been deleted, and just to visually see that, you want to refresh, and off they go. Option 4 here, as you may recall, is pretty much a combination of all the first 3 options. I don't think there's a need for demonstrating this, but again, this is a great option to use if Revit was to be considered as the source of truth. So, as far as the text setup goes, a parameter that should be used as the key, one that is always guaranteed to have a value, should be that very famous Revit IFC GUID. The second point they're trying to make here is that even if the attribute configuration that you are using have bidirectional mappings, what will actually only be considered is the Revit to dRofus data injection, and not the other way around. There may be plans to also write data into the Revit design files, but just not at this stage. We're therefore referring this limitation as partially supported mappings. With regards to the permissions on the dRofus front, really you've got only the 2 very pretty obvious requirements that you see there. Whereas on the Revit side of things, you will note that all that is required is that the user needs to be a user on the ACC project, just simply that. And no, the user does not need to have the design collaboration type of privileges, just the docs type will do. And again, no need for a Revit license. Since the early part of this year, I think it was around March, the dRofus AEC data sync has been on the Autodesk App Store, so yay. I will finish off with a couple of slides that contains some of the typical FN Q&A. Yeah, and that is all from me. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll just. Yeah, and we'll open up the floor to questions for any of our speakers tonight. So we'll start with the people in the room. Does anyone have any questions? Marnie? No, where's the? Oh no, sorry, Peter. Sorry.
Sounds scary, but also potentially good. I presume log notes are not available to add every time you sing. Like you'll obviously get the little report, but if you want to say, updating rooms because we've gone to a user group and they've decided to double the rooms, can we add that in or not?
Yeah, so if I heard you right, Peter, anytime there's synchronization, are you guaranteed to get an email with the sync log?
No, my question was more about can we put in log notes to say why we've done that sync?
As in the dRofus logs, let's just say not yet. So if you think that's a great idea, we can definitely take it in. Currently, it's not possible, but if you see some great value in that, yeah, why not? Because
Running.
I'll make it short. Currently, no.
So that's just Autodesk API because you're running an ACC project.
Correct. If you've got a dRofus account and if you've got an Autodesk docs read-only, I don't have to be in the team of publishers. If you can read your models up in ACC, you'll get all of this.
Yeah, nice. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions in the room? All right, Paul.
Paul.
It's a question for Angelo and Michael. How much money did Malt Traders make when you were working on these projects? But the real question is, going from Codebook to dRofus, obviously Codebook did not have a really good user interface. And I think that's where dRofus really amplified the market and made it a little more usable. What was the biggest challenge that you had working on those projects that were working in Codebook to dRofus and then implementing a dRofus and getting the users to come along that journey with you? But Malt Traders, how much money did they make?
I choose not to answer that question. Codebook to dRofus. I mean, I think one of the interesting things that when we did start to make that move towards dRofus was built around BIM. Rather than BIM in mind, whereas Codebook has been around for quite a large amount of time and kind of fell into AutoCAD, as we would describe, and was used to create C sheets and the kind of elevations and all that kind of stuff. So it's
You're showing your age now.
Oh, mate, I heard from you, buddy. Never created a C sheet from Codebook myself, unfortunately. But again, the good thing with dRofus was and its integration with OzHFG, whereas Codebook, you'd have to, when you'd start a project, you'd have to implement all the templates. You'd have to create all of that data yourself, whereas dRofus have done with the health facility guidelines and all that kind of stuff, constant updates. And a new project, you're going in with all the information armed, you've got all your templates armed. So if you have an SOA there ready to go, it's quite a simple exercise of applying the correct and again, from where I'm sitting now, it means that quite quickly you can get an FF&E schedule, you can get accurate information, you can start pushing floor finishes, ceiling finishes, all that kind of information through, and again, start getting all that info really, really quickly. Again, which Codebook, not that I knew it ins and outs, but it was a lot harder to get that level of information.
And were you and Michael the reason why malt traders could expand to the rest of the city?
Yeah, I'll let Michael answer that one.
The answer is yes.
Okay, does anyone in the room have questions for any of the speakers tonight? All right, let's go to, do we have any questions online? Yeah. Okay, do you want to? Okay, me. All right, so I think, didn't you answer something, or?
I think you might have to scroll down.
We'll start off with the last questions and start working our way up.
We'll save Locke from going to the backstage. Okay, let's go with that. Can I track the change? Can I track the dRofus help and learning topic for the latest updates of this feature? So Guan Wong would like to know if you're able to track the learning topic. So in other words, if there's any delta of changes, if there's new publications in the help and learn, is that, give a thumbs up, Guan, if that's your question. Does the help and learn? Yeah, okay, so that's what she meant here. Again, not yet, but that's a great idea. I like that idea. Those, who actually thoroughly read all the pages and sub-pages and wants to keep a track on what's new, why not? It's not really dRofus, but, the publication for how to use dRofus manual. Yeah, I like that idea. The next question is Conrad, or reverse chronological order. Free, but you need dRofus. Correct. I assume that phases and design options are ignored, not supported, similar to, correct, as in similar to the add-on or the integration with Revit. Yeah, correct. Harrington has asked, when using the auto room deletion, mark the room deleted or delete the room permanently? Good question. So when this is it was a situation which was permanent deletion, and the permanent deletion just like kills it. There's no logs and stuff like that. And of course, you need to be an administrator user. For those of you who know, to permanently delete a room. So we put in an internal thing. I was part of it. So that should be a mark deleted. So yes, we're working on that. If we don't already have that, it will be, when it's like publicly easily available, it shall be a marked room deleted. Christine Cox has asked, only the idea is, I'm not sure if it is the actual nomenclature, the naming of that Revit file. The next version is now V12. It identifies the latest as the greatest. Christine, it could be the ID of that file. I'm not sure the Autodesk side of things, but if it's the same file, but with changes, the latest is the greatest.
AC setting already available?
No.
Okay, cool.
That's a bit harsh. No, but also to let you know, Christine, we may consider also giving sort of like a test, sort of, make you the little guinea pig of ours, all in good faith.
All right, I think, sorry about the technical difficulties. We can't actually scroll back up, so I think we're going to call it a night. I want to give a round of applause for our speakers, Dipesh, Christian, Angelo, and Michael. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you all for coming.